Hey guys, it's Danny. Today we are playing with some orchid seedlings. They have arrived. If you guys remember, a million years ago, like 4 or 5 more years ago, I used to have a whole bunch of what I like to call kitties, meaning Cattleya seedlings. And well, along the way, I lost them. As it turns out, they're not the type of orchids you do experiments with. We're gonna talk about all of the mistakes that I did and what I learned in this video. I'm gonna show you what kitties I ordered, where from. We're gonna repot 1 or 2 of them and just talk a little bit about seedlings generally. So yeah, welcome to today's video where my hairdo is a mess, but I cannot cope with the heat if I keep my hair down. I hate how I look like this, but it is what it is. If I don't do this, we're gonna see a live fainting, so let's not do that. So before we start, don't forget to give this video a like if you end up enjoying it, and why not subscribe? I post multiple times a week and it's completely free. But if you're feeling extra and you can, do consider further supporting the channel by becoming a member, checking out the affiliate links down below, checking out the merch, or using the super thanks option below my videos. Right, before we start, put this away. I forgot he was here with us today. Right, so let's start with seedlings in general and what you should know about them. Some of the mistakes that I made with the previous ones that I had, you're gonna have chapters below in the description so you can skip around if you're not interested in particular things. But the truth of the matter is, orchid seedlings generally are a great way to start an orchid collection if you are on a budget. And I'm only showing you a few, and this is because I already repotted some of them. I'm gonna show you all of them at the end of the video. I purchased around 15 Cattleya seedlings for around 100 euros, not including shipping. But that's a great price, isn't it? Well, orchid seedlings are actually very affordable in comparison to their mature counterparts. And depending on the area, they can cost anywhere from a few euros or a few dollars to maybe 10, 15, depending on the species and again on the area. I paid for mine from 4 euros or something like that to 7 euros. I have one that is a no ID. That was the cheapest one. It's going to be a surprise when it blooms. I like surprises. That was the cheapest one. So if you really want to have a bigger collection, but it's just so expensive, do consider seedlings because they generally are cheaper. The problem with the seedlings is that you will have to wait around a little bit and baby these guys, because orchids grow very slow. So you're looking at anywhere between 2 to 3, maybe 4 years before you get a mature orchid, before you get blooms. What I'm showing you here are Cattleya seedlings. These particular ones, they're very hard in comparison to other orchids, but they will only bloom when mature. So you'll have to wait a few years for these. But if you find Phalaenopsis seedlings, which again are pretty hardy, they can even bloom while they are immature. They will not put out a great show like mature orchids, but they will show you a few flowers. They will show you how they look like, and that is absolutely fantastic. So with Phalaenopsis, you can actually have blooms even maybe after the first year if you're lucky. With Cattleyas, maybe not so much, but the reward is a little bit better with Cattleyas, in my opinion, because we have a lot more variety when it comes to hybrids. And also, their mature counterparts, sometimes they can be quite expensive. For example, the Dowiana, that one is an expensive species. You would have to pay quite a bit for a mature individual if you want to purchase it. But a seedling, it's pretty cheap. All you have to do is wait. And as the name suggests, these guys are coming from seeds, generally speaking. If there are a few that are coming from tissue culture, I'm not entirely sure. I cannot say. They usually are sold as small orchids. So some of them might be tissue culture. But the ones that I purchased, they are crosses and they're not named. So that tells me they are obtained from seed. There is no picture of these orchids. We don't know how they're gonna look like. So it will be quite a surprise for us as well when they're gonna bloom. So mine are seedlings, but some might actually come from tissue culture. I personally cannot tell the difference unless the nursery tells me that it's a clone. But generally they require the same care, the same type of babying around. You know how it is with tiny orchids. So that should not really make a difference other than how they will look when they bloom. So those are seedlings in a nutshell. Now, when you're gonna purchase them, they might vary when it comes to age. A seedling can be a just deflasked orchid, which I do not suggest. If you're a beginner, maybe don't buy flasks. You're gonna have to harden up these orchids and adjust them to the ambiental world, which is cruel and low in humidity. And if you don't know what you're doing, it can end in disaster. I would suggest you purchase something like this, which is already deflasked and has been in the air for maybe even a year or two already. So seedlings can look like this or can be even taller. As you will see, I do have a few orchids that are supposed to be 36 months from blooming, but they already look halfway there. They're already young plants, in my opinion, not seedlings anymore. So depending on your luck and depending on the nursery, you can have something very tiny indeed, but you can also have something a little bit further grown, which is not yet mature, but it's not really a seedling either. So it depends on the luck of the draw. The price was the same for me, so I got a little lucky there. All of these orchids are coming from Orchid Garden in Poland. They ship throughout the EU. They do not ship overseas. Nurseries do not generally ship overseas. It has to do with many reasons that I'm not gonna get into. Organics usually pretty hard to ship overseas. You need phytosanitary certificates. It's a lot of extra cost. So if you are on the lookout for seedlings, check vendors and nurseries in your economic region, which can be state, country, alliance of countries like the EU, like we are, and so on and so forth. Don't try to order from Europe if you're in the USA, or vice versa, or from different territories. They most likely will not ship. But don't worry, seedlings are everywhere. Everybody loves seedlings. And as long as you're purchasing from reputable nurseries, you should not pay an arm and a leg. That's the whole point of the seedlings. They're very, very affordable. And again, I would not buy flasks. 2 reasons. They're much harder to grow, let's say, or to acclimate. That's one. And second, what are you gonna do with 100 of the same type of orchid? Yes, sure, it's a seedling. It's gonna differ a little bit. Each individual will be a little different. But in essence, it's the same cross. You're not gonna get Ivanagara apple blossom if what you ordered is Dowiana. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna get a whole lot of orchids of the same kind. I don't know, do you want that? Maybe you do. I personally don't. Purchase them individually if you want variety, and always purchase from reputable sellers and check the prices in your area because you don't want to get conned. There are many people who would do that if a plant is trending. Right, enough blabbing. Let's get to repotting one of these guys, and I will make sure to tell you what I did wrong in the first attempt of raising some of these seedlings so that hopefully you can learn from my mistakes. We're gonna get to the care basics of these guys as well as we repot so that we don't waste too much time. Right, I need a tray, I need gloves, be right back. Alrighty, so let us go ahead and repot this one. I'm gonna show you pictures of the parents of these orchids and their names at the end of the video, don't worry. So how I'm gonna go about it is exactly like with a mature orchid. I'm gonna press a little bit on the sides of the pot and then I'm gonna slide the orchid out. Now, one thing you should be very aware of with seedlings is that they cannot rely on too much older growth. I mean, look at it. This is all it is. This is the entire plant. We don't have back bulbs that will store a lot of energy and a lot of water. So simply from this point of view, I think you can see how these guys, they require a little bit more attention because if something happens, they really don't have too many backup plans. They're not completely defenseless, but also they, in my opinion, do not compare to their mature counterparts. You know, Cattleyas can be quite robust plants. These guys, not so much. They will not be as tolerant to drought and maybe not even as tolerant to heat. Although mine traveled in the heat wave and they're absolutely fine. I did have a few yellow leaves, but nothing major. Now, this is a trait of the Cattleya. Whatever seedling you have will obviously require pretty much the same care as its mature counterpart. So if you have a Phalaenopsis, obviously, you will not put it in a lot of light and a lot of sun because it really doesn't need it. Cattleya seedlings, even though they're more sensitive, they do still require warm temperatures and light. But everything you do and everything you offer should be offered in moderation. Fertilizer in moderation. We don't have a whole lot to fertilize and to feed here. Light in moderation. I would not push these guys to acclimate them in direct sun and extreme heat and all of that, simply because they do not possess enough backup structures, but also because they're brand new. They're really not truly 100% hardened off, as it were. They're not really all that resilient just yet as mature orchids. So do be a little bit more thoughtful, I guess, with them. Try to go with the basic care of the mature counterparts, but everything should be done in moderation and with a little bit more care in mind. Right, so I watered my orchids, but because it is bark, it tends to stick to the roots. So I'm doing my best to remove these pieces gently from the root system. We all know Cattleyas are not the best with their roots. They're very sensitive. Well, seedlings are even more so. And because I don't have many other roots and many other structures to fall back on, I need to be extra gentle. And even if I have pieces of bark still stuck to the roots, I'm gonna let them be. In this instance, I don't really have much left. The cleanup that I did here is enough. I just need my shears. Where are my shears? There they are. Let's spray them with some alcohol. So I will go ahead and cut away all of the roots that are dead, and you can see some strings here. Definitely, they need to go. But I will leave on roots that look just questionable because I don't have too many roots to fall on. I do have new growth, but who knows when new roots will be produced. The reason why I am repotting right now is that these seedlings are all potted in bark, and it's not fine bark, it's normal bark. And this medium is totally not suited for my environment. I will have hydration issues with these guys, which I don't want to have. They're seedlings, they need more hydration than mature orchids. So I'm taking my chances because I have new growth, and I'm hoping new roots will be right around the corner. Right, so I cut away all of the dead roots that I could see. Now I am indeed going to spray hydrogen peroxide 3% on the root system of this orchid because I really do not want to have snails. Snails and slugs, as funny as they are, little Maya, they are lethal to new growth and roots. And the last thing I want to do is lose new roots on a seedling. I am depending on the new roots. So I'm gonna go ahead, or actually just do this on camera. Right, so I have hydrogen peroxide 3% in the spray bottle. If you purchase it from the pharmacy at 3%, you don't need to dilute it. Use it as it is, no need for rinsing. If it's more concentrated, you need to dilute it. I would not use more than 3% on roots. I usually keep this at the sink. Oh, and I'm almost out. Okay, we're back. Sorry about that. I needed to refuel, ran out. So I'm just going to spray the root system, not the entire orchid, just maybe the base of the pseudobulbs and then the root system. It will start to fizz. That is absolutely normal. It's just the reaction between the hydrogen peroxide and the organics. I personally am going to use these types of nursery pots because they're very affordable and they do not let light in, so there is no cyanobacteria forming, which is great. Roots do not need light. Even if they can photosynthesize, doesn't mean they need to. Leaves are meant to do that. And as a medium, I'm using only sphagnum moss, which again is a medium that helps out here in my very hot and very dry environment. Generally speaking, seedlings do require a little bit more moisture than mature orchids. A few reasons for that are the size of the pot. Smaller pots will generally dry out faster than bigger pots. Another reason is the nature of the orchid, which is not completely mature and does not have much storing devices just yet, so it's not as tolerant to drought. And third, we are doing still that transition between a very high moisture environment in the flask and then the outside world where things are not as moist. So I like to keep the transition pretty gradual. I don't want to let these guys bone dry for a week or something like sometimes happens with the mature orchids. Even if it's a cattleya, it's a baby, and I need to be a little bit more careful with keeping it moist. Now, sphagnum moss is a very popular choice for many people, but there are environments where sphagnum moss is really not that advisable. If you feel like your environment simply is too moist or too cool, I would definitely go for bark chips. Maybe go for a small bark chip mixture, or even a combination between sphagnum moss and bark chips. You do want to have a little bit more water retention, but if your environment simply doesn't require it, you can definitely go for bark chips. Maybe smaller grade bark chips. What I would advise against, and this is based on my own experience, is making experiments with leca, with pon, with whatever crosses your mind. If you would like to do some experiments with orchids, that's great. I love doing experiments and seeing what media is good and so on. But I would do these experiments with already mature orchids. They are much more forgiving and resilient. If you care about the seedlings, just do this compromise at first until they mature a little bit more. Use some tried and true materials like sphagnum moss and bark chips, because they really are very sensitive. Trust me when I tell you. And even if they're not going to give up on life overnight, the setback eventually will get them. And this is the main reason why I lost my seedlings. I do have quite a few updates on them along the years, but slowly and surely they kind of withered off. Even if at some point they reached some maturity stages, I do think I still have 2 or 3 of them which are almost mature. The setback itself just weakened the plant to such an extent that it was barely growing anymore. So it ended up just dying off because it was stressed and weak. I was about to say sick, but no, it was weak. And also with cattleyas, you know, there are those that have a very distinct pattern of growth. They only create a new growth per year and a new root system once a year. So being very set back, plus being very weak, plus not growing roots when I wanted it to grow roots equals not here anymore. So if I would do it again, I would definitely not use leca, which is what I was trialing at the time when I had my seedlings. Hence, this time I'm sticking to moss. I'm generally sticking to moss nowadays anyway, but even if I were to use leca or other stuff with the seedlings, I would still go for the traditional potting media, the tried and true stuff, whatever you want to call it. I would just not experiment, because they're just not the orchids you experiment with. Alright, so I'm not going to use slow release fertilizer or anything like that. I don't want to overdo it with these guys. I'm going to use a top layer of bark to prevent cyanobacteria, because I do want those root tips to grow healthy. I don't want them to grow into anything toxic. I'm also going to not use my regular fertilizing regime. I'm going to use the solution that I prepare, the MSU. I'm gonna dilute it half or a quarter strength, let's say, and that's what I'm gonna use for these guys. We don't need a lot of fertilizer. I don't need to use a lot of it and create all sorts of buildup that will in turn accumulate on the top and then maybe burn some of these roots. They don't need it. When they grow a little bit more, I will up the fertilizer as well. But for now, it is really unnecessary. Alrighty, so this is my first orchid potted. I will write the date on the tag just so I remember. Most likely though, these orchids will need repotting in a year or so, maybe. Depends how fast they grow actually. Which brings me to another point. When do we repot seedlings? Well, pretty much you will have to repot them when they outgrow the pots. At this stage, they will grow fast, pretty much. In orchid terms, fast. Do not expect a lot of growth overnight, but we will not change the medium necessarily when it's time, when it goes bad. We will change it when there's no more space in the pot and the orchid starts to produce roots outside of the pot. Many of the times people opt for oppotting, meaning just removing the orchid, keeping the interior medium with the roots intact and putting it in a brand new pot with brand new medium around. That is a technique that I think should not be done by beginners. It should not be done if you are not 100% sure of your potting mixes. Now, I could up-pot this orchid for the next 2 years because this sphagnum moss is such good quality, it's not gonna deteriorate in a year. So in a year, I could up-pot it with the condition that I need to repot it within another year. I can't hold it like this forever. What can happen, and usually happens if you're using bad quality moss or weird plugs, is that all of those roots in the middle, they will start to die off and degrade because the plug, let's call this the plug, right? The plug will degrade. So you will have a nucleus in the middle of your pot which will degrade and start to produce byproducts that are toxic to the other roots. So one day your orchid will be fine, and within the span of a week or something you will discover more and more yellow leaves that fall, and you're gonna be like, what the heck is going on? Why is my orchid dehydrated? I mean, I've seen it with other YouTubers as well, with other people. I read in the comments, it can happen. So I would never recommend to anybody to up pot orchids, not even if you're using inorganic, because roots do not live forever. At some point they will die off. Unless you really know what you're doing, don't up pot, just remove the plug. But if you know what you're doing and if you are very convinced of the quality of the products you're using, don't let me tell you what to do. Just be mindful. Be sincere with yourself. Do you trust yourself enough to up pot an orchid? If you do, that's fine. If you don't, if you're not sure, don't up pot, just repot. Remove the old medium, put it in brand new medium. Righty then. So this is how I'm gonna go about all of these orchids. I have to say all of them, they look pretty good. I don't really have much issues. This is one of the casualty leaves, maybe the pseudobulb as well, but I have a lot of other growths. I only had issues with 2, maybe 3 of them because of the heat wave. Everybody else is absolutely fine. I'm very happy with these orchids. So I don't think there's any point in me repotting another one. This is exactly how I'm gonna go about everybody else. I'm gonna keep all of these seedlings in my IKEA cabinet. I'm gonna show you at the end. And yeah, that is about it for the repotting. Now, let me just tell you what orchids I have, because I took pictures of the listing and the parents that were crossed, so it's fun to see pictures, right? Hold on, we'll be right back after I clean my little table. And voila, look at them, look at the babies. I have so many of them. All of these, around 100 euros. That's a good deal, isn't it? I mean, if you're willing to wait. And so what I would suggest is you distract yourself with a few phalaenopsis that will bloom for you in the next few years until these guys grow up. When they grow, the satisfaction will be immense because these are baby orchids that you've grown. So I think you're gonna enjoy the journey if you don't get bored of waiting, right? So to wrap up the repotting topic, just repot these guys in whatever mixture works out best for you, keeping in mind they might require more water than you expect, more water than their mature counterparts, or actually not more water as a quantity, but more frequent watering. You should still try to maintain the pot airy. They're still epiphytic orchids. They are transitioning from a very high moisture environment to something a lot drier. The tinier the orchid, the more it's still adjusted to high humidity around the root system. So I would not let them be dry for way too long. I would do this transition gradually. For me, sphagnum moss works great. I don't need to have transparent pots to check the roots because I already can tell by the look of the orchid, but feel free to use transparent pots with slits if it works out for you. Ventilation is necessary still, but it depends on the environment and how comfortable you are, exactly what type of pot you're gonna choose, right? So now let's take these one by one and just show you what they are. And as you can see, some of them are a lot larger than others. On the website, as you will see, they are all advertised as 30 to 36 months away from blooming. I mean, I would not compare something like this with something like this. And yes, some orchids will naturally grow taller than others, but judging by the number of pseudobulbs and the state of the orchid, I can tell this one is a much older orchid than this one. It's not all about the size. Yes, this is a taller orchid, but it's not the size of the seedling that matters, is the age here. So who knows, you might be lucky to have some seedlings which will bloom in a year and a half maybe, or 2 for you guys. Right, so let's stop blabbing, right? Let's start with this one. This is RLC repotme. Don't ask me how they look like because I have no idea. There are too many of them, but I will post pictures on the screen. And you can see the prices as well because I think I took screenshots with the price as well. This one is Cattleya hodkinsoniae These are very new for me. I'm not used to their names just yet, so I might mispronounce them or just like take my time to pronounce them. Some of them are named hybrids, some will not have a name. This is Cattleya Hawaiian Wedding crossed with Pink Empress. I purchased this one because Hawaiian Wedding is one of those candidates which could be the Princess Jackie white Cattleya. So I don't know. It's one of the parents. I just want to see what ends up growing here. Next, it's the Cattleya Bellona Saint Quentin 1914 crossed with, oh no, it is a cross of Cattleya Dowiana and Maggie Raphael. So yeah, not really sure how this one will look like. The Dowiana is a beautiful orchid, very, very popular in hybridization. This is Cattleya Hybrid. I think this was the cheapest one. I don't even remember how much it costed, but I think it was the cheapest one because we don't know what it is. We're gonna have a surprise. I'm hoping it's something different than all of these. You know me, I like surprises. Next up, here we have RLC Beardwoodensis Beardwoodensis Rutherford 1912. This is a hybrid that was first made in 1912. He's an old hybrid. All right, next up, we have BC Felipe I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that. Crossed with Cattleya Leopoldi Schokoladenprinz. Schokoladenprinz. Does it have anything to do with chocolate? Is it German? Okay, next up, Cattleya violacea. This is actually a species. I've always wanted violacea. I can find it as a mature individual, but why not grow it? This is Cattleya maxima variety Cerulean cross seedling. Whenever you hear Cerulean, just know it is a bluer version. Now, in the world of orchids, blue, it's not very common. I don't know if it exists as true ink blue. It is more of a purple that, depending how you look at things, it might look blue, but it's not really blue. Cerulean, though, is a name that I think derives from Latin, cerulea. Yeah, it sounds Latin. So we give this name to things that are purpley blue. This is, okay, SLC Ayrton Senna Story. When I was a kid, I used to watch Formula One with my brother, and I liked it a lot until at a point I did not miss a Grand Prix. But at some point I stopped watching. However, I wanted to purchase this orchid for the name, and for those of you who know, you know. I have a few orchids that have interesting or beautiful names. I will make a video on them as well. I do like to collect orchids that have special names or that are dedicated to personalities and things of the sorts. I purchased this one for the name because I used to watch Formula One a lot when I was a kid. Right, next, this is LC Marie Chen crossed with Cattleya Mesuresi. I have no idea. No idea how to pronounce these things, but all of them are really, really beautiful orchids. This one is Cattleya Eerie Color crossed with sibling Now. Eerie Color is another one of those Cattleyas that I've always kind of wanted, but it's hard to find it in a mature stage, so I'd rather have the seedling. Next up, here we have Schomburgia thomsoniana. I think it's now reclassified as Myrmecophila, crossed with Cattleya lodigesi. I love both of these orchids. A cross between them should look fabulous. Alrighty, next up, this is Cattleya degistiana, which is Laelia flava crossed with Jongiana, maybe. It's very tiny. Laelias are not very tall orchids, so I'm guessing this one will not grow too big. And the last seedling, this is Cattleya maxima. Ooh, Chadwick's Dark. This one looks spectacular. And I'm guessing it's a cross made by Chadwick or Chadwick and Son, I think they're called now. It is a maxima, which is a species I kind of always wanted to have, but again, it's either kind of expensive, either you find it in a very young state. So I really like this cross. It's a very dark purple, and yeah, it's one of those orchids that grows pretty tall, but it's okay. It's not a seedling. This is a young plant. So see what I mean? Some of them are very young, some not so young. I think I went through all of them. Did I miss any? No, I don't think I did. So these are the 15, if I'm not mistaken, seedlings that I purchased from Orchid Garden. And I just have a few more to repot, but they're all potted in my sphagnum moss medium with a layer of bark on top, and I am keeping all of them in one of my IKEA cabinets. This is just to protect them a little bit because these have not been sprayed with insecticide yet. It's very hot outside, we're experiencing a heat wave, and even in the morning time it's so hot that I just don't want to spend any time outside. And I also don't want to add those fertilizer sticks that have insecticide as well, because I don't want to over fertilize these orchids. They are sensitive indeed. So I'm keeping them in the IKEA cabinet just to protect them a little bit more, and I'm just keeping my eye on them. I will spray them when temperatures go down. I don't know when that will be, maybe in autumn. So that's where they're living for now, and it's a good place because they do require bright light and warmth. I just need to not overdo it with any of them, which I won't. So yeah, you guys, this is about it on my little kitties. Let me know what you think of them. I find them really cute. I hope this video was helpful. And remember, if you want to have seedlings, do not experiment with them. It's the best advice that I can give you out of my own experience, because for me it did not go well. And again, not that I killed them overnight, but the setback accumulated so much that they become incredibly sensitive and incredibly sluggish and slow growing, and just, you know, they were decimated at the first sign of thrips or the first sign of fusarium or whatever. They did not last. So just keep it safe until they grow up, and then, you know, put them in the cup, put them in whatever you want to grow them. Right, so do you guys have any seedlings? Let's grow them together. I'm gonna make sure to give you updates from time to time, which I will pin in the first comment under this video. If there is no pinned comment, then there is no update. But the moment that I have some updates, I will let you know. Righty, so thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed hanging out with me today. Oh, how are you handling the heat wave? I want winter. I'm done with the summer. We didn't even go to the beach, and I'm done. No thanks, bye. I want winter, because winter is just so nice and warm here. So yeah, I'm done with summer already, guys. Oh my goodness. How are you guys holding up? Let me know in a comment. Righty, so with that said, thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a great day or weekend. I'm not sure when I'm posting this exactly, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.